Last week, we did 3 episodes covering the 215 question study guide for the state of California. From that study guide, that's a ridiculous amount of questions, but actually from that study guide is the actual test. The test is 100 questions and, not so unwieldy, 100 questions, yeah. Takes some time. And so we plowed through those live without having looked at the questions in advance, reviewing the questions, and we made some mistakes, believe it or not. It happens. Our objective wasn't to say these are the correct answers, do the research, get everything right. Our approach was to say, look, let's look at these questions, let's talk about the questions, the underlying rules, etc. And as many people do, I made some mistakes. And some of the mistakes are rules knowledge mistakes. And some of the mistakes are just test-taking mistakes, right? Oh, that looks like a correct answer, so I'm going to put that down, right? And as opposed to evaluating all of the possible answers, and maybe there's something like that, or the question itself had the word accept one of these, and we thought it was find one of these. So we make mistakes as human beings taking tests. Again, our objective wasn't to be 100%. It was just to attack the questions, look at the questions. And indeed, we have made some mistakes, and we're going to cover those today. Hey, thanks to all of our show supporters. If you want to make a donation to the show, you can always find a link in the show notes below. Special thanks today to Jacob Krause, Patrick Keating, Clarence Cooper Jr., Les O'Connor Jr., Papa Les, as well as Randy Wilson from Chicagoland. Thanks, Randy. Today, what we're going to do is review the questions that we got wrong. It was 215 questions over the course of 3 days, 6 hours, and it was interesting. Day number 1, there were 2 missed questions. Day number 2, there were 4 missed questions. And day number 3, there were like 7 or 8 missed questions. So we see how we did over time, right? And that's one of the things when you have a study guide like that that's kind of arduous to, even if I was just sitting here doing it myself, it's going to take over an hour to complete. It can wear you down, kind of like a game where you've made decisions all game long. And towards the end, you really have to amplify your game or you're at risk of making a mistake. Let's take a look at the first question that we got wrong last week. A1 with both feet in the air catches a passed ball, lands on one foot, jumps, and finally lands on both feet simultaneously. Which of the following is A1 allowed to do? And our possible answers were A, lift either foot off the floor while maintaining possession of the ball and not returning the foot to the floor. B, lift either foot off the floor and begin a dribble. C, this is a traveling violation by rule. Or D, none of the above. And this is a great question for me because it exposed a blank spot in my rules understanding. I had, over the course of time, lost track of what the definition of a pivot is, right? I understand how a pivot foot is established by the lifting of the other foot establishes a pivot foot. But in fact, it is not a pivot to lift your foot. You have not pivoted by rule. And so when this rule, when the traveling rule says you are not allowed to, neither foot may be the pivot after a player has jumped off 1, landed on 2, neither foot may then be the pivot. But lifting the foot is not pivoting, right? And I discovered that, and we can look at the actual rule for a pivot, which I had become, and where are we going to find it? Rule 4. Of course. All right. A pivot takes place when a player who is holding the ball steps once or more than once in any direction with the same foot, while the other foot, called the pivot foot, is kept at its point of contact with the floor. And so that's the mistake that I made, thinking that the lifting of the pivot foot establishes a pivot foot, and therefore a pivot has occurred. So if we had a player who was not allowed to pivot, lifted, and did a pirouette, like a ballerina, right, where they're spinning and one foot's in contact, but they have not returned that foot to the floor, they have not pivoted, even though they've established a pivot foot and their body is spinning or pivoting at a spot on the floor, right? So Rule 4 refresher for me on that one. So when we look at our possible answers, my answer last week was none of the above. And in retrospect, the correct answer is A. Lift either foot off of the floor while maintaining possession of the ball and not returning the foot to the floor. So I feel like the whole exercise was worth it just for simply me getting my head straight about what the parameters of a pivot actually are. And of course, Rule 4 comes to the rescue there. All right, and with that, let's move to our very next question that I got wrong. 70. All of the following result in a goaltending violation except which? A. B2 touches the ball in upward flight outside the cylinder during A1's free throw attempt. B. B2 touches the ball in downward flight outside the cylinder and above the ring level during A1's free throw attempt. C. B2 touches the ball in downward flight outside the cylinder and above the ring level during A1's field goal try. Or D. B2 touches the ball in its downward flight outside the cylinder and above the ring level on A1's inbounds pass. My answer on this one was A. I don't think I actually perceived the fact that we were talking about during a free throw attempt, and then the last two being field goal try or inbounds pass. That's what I think my mistake was on this. There's a lot of words on this question. Is that fair? I have to comprehend all these words. The correct answer here is D. And this is a question I think, now I look at it, except which? Which of these is not a goaltending violation? You cannot have a goaltending violation in the absence of a try for goal, right? And during a throw-in, even though the ball is above the cylinder, even though it may be on the downward flight and may have a chance to go in, it is not a try. Therefore, we cannot have goaltending by rule. If a defensive player during a throw-in contacted the ball on its downward flight outside the cylinder and above ring level and the ball had a chance to go in on a throw-in pass, it is not a goaltending violation. It would be a legal play. If that same pass was contacted when the ball was in the cylinder of the basket or was on or in the basket, and the ball was contacted, that would be a basket interference violation. But my mistake here was except which. Obviously, I know that D is illegal, or that D is not a goaltending violation. I think we talked about that in the rules question. But in the end, the answer was wrong. So with that, let's move on to our next question that I got wrong. 97. Which of the following are true regarding the team's roster and 5 starters prior to the start of the game? A. If both teams fail to submit their rosters prior to the 10-minute mark before the game, no free throws are attempted, right? Administrative technical on both teams. B. If both teams fail to submit their rosters prior to the 10-minute mark before the game, each team shall be awarded 2 free throws. I think that was my answer. C. If both teams change a designated starter prior to the beginning of the game, each team shall be awarded 2 free throws. Or D. Both B and C. My answer on this one was B. If both teams fail to submit, each team will shoot free throws. A situation where there are 2 technical fouls pre-game. But the correct answer here is A. That this is considered a double technical foul by rule, team technicals for both teams, and we will resume at the point of interruption, which would be a jump ball to start the game. I think I was thinking sometimes NFHS in situations like this go a little away from what's intuitive. Intuitive, they both have, we have something we have in the NCAA women's side. We have fouls of equal gravity during the same period, and those are going to cancel, right? That's a logical thing, but there are situations with NFHS where that's not the case, and I let that get the best of me and failed to answer this question correctly. All right, let's jump in and see what's going on. Jacob says, Krause or Carouse? K-R-O-U-Z. I'm going with Krause. You let me know. The Sonny and Cher show, man, that was a staple of my youth. I got to tell you. Jason Hayes. Wait a minute. Gosh darn it. Wait a minute. Let me do that again. Jason Hayes. Super chat. Awesome. Appreciate you, Jason. Let's fix this. Wait a minute. The tech team gets honorable mention on that. Hold on. Let me do some things there. Let's take another look. Excellent. Guys, great news. You're finally going to get to eat. Excellent. Thanks, Jason. That's awesome. Appreciate you. Ooh, Papa Les in the house. All right. Well, in retrospect, we'll see you on the replay if you jump back. Yeah, I don't know about that. Because it takes place over, Jacob, about this being hard to officiate, because the jump stop that we're describing here is a player catches the ball in the air, jumps off 1 foot, lands on 2, right? And then they take action. Invariably, that player who's gotten to that point, not invariably, but often, then looks to pivot. And yes, we have been educated. We have learned something here today as a basketball rules expert. Awesome in the house. And we are moving on to our very next question that I got wrong. How could I miss this? Jesus. Oh, my goodness. How many visible manufacturers' logos are allowed to be worn on jerseys and undershirts? The brain cramp was strong with this one. 1 on each. 1 on the undershirt, but none on the jersey. None on the undershirt, but 1 on the jersey. Or D, none on either. Right? My answer, none on the undershirt. The correct answer, 1 on each. Brain cramp occurred. A simple rules question that we got wrong. Wait a minute. A simple rules question that we got wrong. Okay, moving on. Our very next rules question that I got wrong. Under what conditions is the resumption of play procedure used? A, when a team does not make a free thrower available for a free throw following a timeout or intermission between quarters. B, when a team does not make a thrower available for a throw-in following the halftime intermission. C, when a team does not make a thrower available for a throw-in following the timeout or intermission between periods. Or D, all of the above. My answer, which was incorrect, was C. I think I was sort of like guessing here, as I recall from the episode. But our correct answer is D, all of the above. My only question here is B, I think what I did is I said, well, I know that B is not true, so therefore we can't have all of the above. So let's look at B. When a team does not make a thrower available for throw-in following the halftime intermission, what is the correct procedure in the instance where one team does not make a thrower available? I think my mistake here was saying, well, we know the procedure when a team does not return from the locker room after the halftime intermission, that they are not allowed by rule to delay the game for 1 minute. So, of course, we pregame have talked to our administration on the game and said this crew needs to, or both teams need to be notified 3 minutes before the end of the halftime intermission. We have emphasized that fact because that's part of our role as officials. And so we're assuming that they were properly notified that they were 3 minutes and they have failed to return. And in that instance, they cannot delay the game proceeding by more than 1 minute. So our clock gets down to 0. We can instruct the timer to give us a 1 minute interval that could be on the clock. I'd prefer that. Or that could be on a handheld device. And the team must be back by that point. If they fail to, then a team technical would be assessed, right? So in that instance, once they had returned, then we would attempt technical foul free throws, and the resulting free throw would actually be a division line throw in for the offended team in that instance. So I think that's where because I'm so smart about rules, and so I say, oh, I know that thing, so I'm going to bring that into this situation. But in fact, in this case, I think we're simply talking about the teams have returned at halftime. They are both in their huddles. One team comes out and the other team does not. And in this instance, it wouldn't be a situation of delaying the game by a minute for failing to return. And so I conflated my understanding of that rule into this rule. But simply, our question here, the correct answer is all of the above. All of these would be conditions in which the resumption of play procedure is used. And we will move on to our next question that I got wrong. 115. Before A1 releases the ball on the second of 2 free throws, A2 pushes B2. Immediately afterward, A3 steps into the free throw lane. Team B is in the bonus. All of the following are true except which? Is this an except which that I failed to notice? Let's take a look. A, B2 is awarded 2 free throws. That would be true. B, A2's push is a team control foul. C, A3's violation is ignored. D, A1 shall receive his or her second free throw. My answer on this was that this was a team control foul, but the correct answer, all of which are true except I'm going to go to the chat. Help me understand this. What am I missing on this play? We seem to have a simple comprehension issue. Why would B2 not be awarded free throws for a foul when that team is in the bonus? I see my mistake. Before A1 releases the ball on the second of 2 free throws, A2 pushes B2. Immediately afterward, A3 steps into the free throw lane. Team B is in the bonus. Thank you. The chat saves my bacon. Mike Williams, team control. Team control exists in this situation. A2's foul on B2 is a team control foul by rule. And when there's a team control foul, a player control foul, there are no free throws will be attempted. Thank you for that. Mark Asmussen jumps in as well. There is team control. Thank you. Before the ball is released, right? So my brain was hung up there. Awesome. comprehension, right? And of course, when we do tests that take real world situations and apply them to a text-based format, our comprehension of what has actually occurred. If this situation occurred in the game, right, I would know that this is before the release. Boy, oh boy. So that's me. I made a mistake. I'll own it. Coach, I kicked that one. Oh, thanks everybody for jumping in. Chip, I will show you the question again. Before A1 releases the ball on the second of 2 free throws, A2 pushes B2. Immediately afterward, A3 steps into the free throw lane. Team B is in the bonus. All of the following are true except which? And of course, if we think this through, the ball has become dead at the moment of the foul because the try had not been released, despite what my brain thought what we had on this question. B2 would not be awarded free throws, so all of the others are true. A2's push is a team control foul. That is true. A3's violation is ignored. That is true. A1 shall receive his or her second free throw. That is true. So what would our correct adjudication of this play, where we have a team control foul before the final merited free throw by that team? We would clear the lane. We would report the foul. It's counted towards bonus. The result will be an end-line throw-in nearest the spot of the foul. That player is still entitled to a merited free throw, the second of their 2. We would clear the lane. That player attempts their free throw, and we resume the game with a throw-in to the opponent at the end line at the spot nearest the foul. I'm glad we can finally put that one to rest. All right, we're moving on to our very next rules question that yes, me, I got wrong. 124, after A1 throws a ball that enters the basket from below, all of the following are true except which? Is this another except that I missed? A, it is a violation on A1 if the ball enters the cylinder, goes above the ring, and then falls through the net. B, it is not a violation if the ball enters the cylinder, does not go above the ring, and then falls back through the net. C, it is a violation on A1 if the thrown ball was first deflected by B2, enters the cylinder, goes above the ring, and then falls back through the net. Or D, there's too many words in this question. There's too many words. It is a violation on B1 if the thrown ball was first deflected by B2, enters the cylinder, goes above the ring, and then falls back through the net. Whew, that's exhausting. My answer, probably out of fatigue, was it is not a violation if the ball enters the cylinder, does not go above the ring, and then falls back through the net. Of course, our question was, all of the following are true except which? I think my brain said, oh, that's a true statement, so that's going to be our answer, but it's except which. And the correct answer, it is a violation on A1 if the thrown ball was first deflected by B2, enters the cylinder, goes above the ring, and falls back through the net. Who caused the ball to have this illegal action if that was the situation? It was deflected by B2. B2 would be the cause of the violation. It would be a violation on Team B in this instance. I think this is one of the questions where I missed the except. In my brain didn't pick it up. So that's a question that I got wrong. All right, moving on to question 150. Multiple Team A members on the bench refused to sit during a live ball. Which of the following is or are true? I couldn't possibly miss that question. Which of the following is or are true? A single technical foul is charged. That would be my. So this is the other type of question that that I'm prone to make. A mistake that I'm prone to make. A single technical foul is charged. I know that's a true statement. Which of the following are true? That's my answer. Great. Everything's good. Except B is an indirect technical foul is charged to the head coach. C, a technical foul is charged to each offender. Or D, both A and B. I took the quick and easy answer and was incorrect by saying A, but even though that's a true statement, but the question says which are true. And of course, since it was behavior by bench personnel, an indirect technical foul is assessed to bench personnel. And of course, anytime that occurs, an indirect technical foul is assessed to the head coach, as the head coach is responsible in the instance of behavior by bench personnel. So understanding when players become bench personnel is important, of course, as well. So our correct answer here is D. Both are true. A single technical foul is charged, and that's a really important takeaway. And so, somebody who's really smart with the rules says, ooh, I know the answer here when they see it, that it's only a single technical foul. And all the comprehension about what's being actually asked in the question falls by the wayside. And in the end, we get the question wrong. There you have it. I'm going to own that one. And we'll move on to our very next question that I got wrong. 152. Which of the following is true of a flagrant foul? Which of the following is true? A, it may be personal or technical. It is possible to have a non-contact flagrant technical foul. I know that's true. B, it is possible to have a contact flagrant personal foul. It is possible to have a contact flagrant technical foul. Those are both true. C, it is possible to have a non-contact flagrant personal foul. Or D, both A and B. I think the same mistake has occurred. I said, ooh, I see a correct answer. That will be my answer, and we're moving on. But of course, A and B are both true, so our correct answer here would be D. So I, attribute this to being just a test-taking mistake or eager to move on or what have you. But we need to be better than that, so we got that question wrong. Ay. And let's move on to the next question that I got wrong. 164. With 36.5 seconds left in the last period half, there is an inadvertent whistle for a foul that stops the clock. A21 has reported as a substitute prior to the whistle. A, A21 may enter the game. It's got to be true. Only Team B may have substitute enter. That is not true. C, A21 may not enter the game. Or D, any substitutions may enter at this time, regardless of whether they have checked in or not. Well, my answer was D, and I would still stay with that. And so I'm going to look to the chat who's going to help me out. And what is my problem here on this play? The correct answer is listed as A21 may enter the game. Well, obviously A21. So I guess our question here is if substitutes were not at the table when this inadvertent whistle occurred, would then any additional substitutes be allowed during this dead ball period using NFHS rules? What is my misunderstanding of this question? Right? So we've got A21 at the table. We beckon them in. Team B coach sends a sub to the table during this dead ball interval for an inadvertent whistle. Right? There are rules and restrictions in this situation for other levels. NCAA women's, it's going to be very specific about who would be allowed to enter or who would not be allowed to enter here. No substitutes at any time can check into the game without first checking in at the table, right? So our rules question says any substitutes may enter at this time regardless of if they have checked in or not. I mean, obviously they can't run onto the floor. The question here in my mind is, can they now, once the ball is dead, go to the table, check in, and be brought in as substitutes? That's the way I read the question. So, I don't know if... So we have to look at the spirit and intent of the question. Is the question to say, since it's... I don't know. Chip Clark says, what the hell are you doing in California to have such a long question? Right? Again, Chip, just to clarify, it's a study guide from which the ultimate test questions are taken. But it is an extensive study guide of 215. It's a lot. 100 questions is a lot. But that's what they have. Mark says they can enter if they go check in. All right, so I guess in the absence of any further explanation, that's what we have to go with on this question. Our players have not and do not check in, I guess. Okay. All right. I don't know. I'm gonna push back on that one, but I am certainly open to clarification. All right, one more question that I got wrong. This is going to be a mechanics question. The lead rules a rebounding foul on Team A that will not result in free throws. The ball will be inbounded by Team B and moved down the court. Do the officials switch positions? A, the lead will report the foul and put the ball back in play as quickly as possible. Yes, even though it is considered a long switch, the lead and trail will switch. No, long switches never occur in two-person officiating. Or D, both A and C. Okay, so we have a long switch situation. I would certainly, with my understanding of mechanics, say the correct answer here should be B. Even though it's considered a long switch, the lead and trail will switch. We switch all fouls, National Federation of High School Basketball rules, a situation that is certainly handled differently in different parts of the country. But understanding the mechanics manual prescribes that we will switch all fouls. Do the officials switch positions? Yes, even though, why would I miss this question? What was my answer? That would not be, it must have been simply when I ultimately entered in. I got to go back and review the tape. I would never say that, right? Correct answer is B. I don't know what was going on. Why? I think maybe when I ultimately entered into the, who knows? I'm not going to miss that. All right, 181. The lead administers all the following throw-in situations except, is this one of those except ones that I missed? A, when the ball goes out of bounds on the front court end line, the lead would administer the throw-in. B, when the ball goes out of bounds in the front court on the trail's side of the court below the free throw line. In National Federation of High School Basketball rules, or mechanics rather, the trail administers all sideline throw-ins. So unlike collegiate throw-ins, that would be the answer. I think when I answered this question, I was tired. We'll see. C, when the ball goes out of bounds on the backcourt end line. D, when the ball goes out of bounds in the front court on the lead side of the court below the free throw line. My answer was B, when the ball goes out of bounds in the front court on the trail side of the court below the free throw line. The lead does not administer. Is this incorrect? The correct answer given by the book was when the ball goes out of bounds on the backcourt end line. So I guess our question is, using National Federation of High School mechanics, when the ball goes out of bounds in the front court in three-person officiating, does the lead administer the free throw below the free throw, or the throw-in below the free throw line extended, like is done at other levels? My understanding, unless something has changed or if California has an exception to this, the trail administers all throw-ins on the sideline per the mechanics manual. What have I done wrong here on this question? Darwin Sonata jumping in from the Great Lakes. Good to see you, Darwin. David, on the previous question, invalid. Dakota Ted, increasing our South Dakota contingent on the live stream from 1 to 2. Good to see you, Ted. So what am I missing on this question? Why did I get 181 wrong? The lead administers all the following throw. So is my understanding incorrect, California officials, or per what you do at the local level? Trail having responsibility for all sideline throw-ins. Am I reading this right? When the ball goes out of bounds in the front court, on the trail side of the court, below the free throw line, NFHS mechanics says the trail administers that throw-in. I'm pushing back. Uh-oh. Willowbrook jumping in, dominating. Michigan is controlling the chat. Trail administers all throw-ins in the backcourt, yes. But this is a front court throw-in. Well, oh my God. Out of control. The Michigan contingent. Dominating. Where's Alaska at? Is Handy in the chat? We got 2. We got Florida. Where's Mike Connors? Chip, where's Mike Connors? What's going on? David Yort says the front court should be done by lead. Is that a true statement? This is a obviously, let me take a look. Chip. 181. It falls under, see, in this book, which I didn't use, I took the online test questions and I took the text and downloaded them, put them into my software here. So even though I did get the mechanograms, and I do have that, this is question 181. This is a 2-person question. You've cracked the code. You've cracked the code, Chip. This is a 2-person question. Excellent. Let me see if I can find what we need. I'll go here. And I'm going to go 181. My brain's not working on this one. I'm not understanding why we have this answer. Let's take a look. Put that there. Let's put that there. Thank you, tech team. When the ball goes out of bounds in the front court on the trail sideline of the court below the free throw line, the trail would administer the throw-in. I don't understand. We're not coming across to take that throw-in. We're not switching sides of the court in that instance. I'm befuddled, I tell you. But let's see. Jim, the question is specific. Well, the lead administers the following, except the answer is specific. The ball goes out of bounds in the front court on the trail side of the court below the free throw line. I don't know what my brain is missing on this play, but the correct answer from the book, which is not, the correct answer from the answer guide, which historically is not always 100% correct. Sometimes mistakes are made. That possibility exists. I'm not going to hang my hat on, well, I've got to be right here. Okay, in any event, let's move on to question 185. When is it acceptable for the lead to pause short of the end line? Let me make sure. Is this a 2-person question or a 1-person question? Or a 1-person. Let's see. 185 is a two-person mechanics question. When is it acceptable for the lead to pause short of the end line? Anytime it is necessary to backtrack. I do not understand that language. B, on quick transition plays that the trail may not be able to officiate. C, only when there are less than 5 players in the front court. Or D, none of the above. Right? So we have a quick transition play. Our lead is beat. He's beaten on this play. When is it acceptable for us to pause short of the end line? My answer was none of the above, because it's acceptable to get in my understanding, it would be acceptable to get when we need an angle on a play to make a ruling on a judgment on a play. The correct answer is B, on quick transition plays that the trail may not be able to officiate. That doesn't make sense to me. The trail would not be responsible for a play in the front court where our lead official, new trail, has been beaten on the play and has to pull up to get an angle. Are we going to rely on the trail, who may be even further behind? I don't know. So that's the correct answer. I guess it makes sense that the trail may not be able to officiate, but the reason why we would pause short of the end line has nothing to do with the trail. The reason we would pause short of the end line is because we need to get a look at a play. We are beaten. We're not going to try to outrace the beaten situation, which puts us potentially in a more stacked look. We want to find the open look on the play so that we can officiate the play. We're not going, well, I'm beaten. I'm going to pull up because my trail, I'm waiting for my trail to come get this from long distance. Don't understand that one. Befuddled he is. Anybody can help me out on that. Thank you, Mike, for that reference. Yes, official responsible for the boundary line will handle the resulting throw-in on the previous question. Willowbrook has seen me work. Awesome. Okay. Fancy that. All right. Well, I couldn't have missed any more questions, right? Wait, there's another one? 190. In the front court, after reporting a shooting foul, the ruling official should. I understand my mistake on this one. A, go opposite the table. B, remain tableside. Well, there's your answer, right? This seems to be a culprit for me on several. C, always assume the trail position. Looking at the question, after reporting a shooting foul or any foul that results in free throws, if it was a bonus situation, we would remain tableside. Here in California, which uses NFHS mechanics, I know some states deviate and say go opposite. But here in California, we use NFHS, and we would always be in that instance, in a situation where fouls are going to be attempted, the trail. So our correct answer here, so my quick trigger was remain tableside, but our correct answer is D, both B and C. That's a mistake that I made multiple times. We're not going to dwell in the past. Mistakes made. No, we're moving forward. We're tossing it aside. This next one, I'm sure I couldn't have possibly made a mistake. 201. A1's try for goal hits the ring, and then the shot clock horn sounds. A, legal play. B, ignore the horn and play continues. C, call a shot clock violation. Or D, both A and B. Is this a Greg quick trigger? Look at the first shiny object, not look at all the answers. Is that possible? I did rule on this play, ignore the horn and play continues, but of course this is a legal play, and our correct answer would be, on the test, both A and B. We have a theme for my missed questions, right? Maybe being a little bit too in a hurry. Was John Wooden say, be quick, but don't hurry? There was some hurrying going on, I think, on these questions. All right, we can't possibly. Do we? Another? I love this one. 2:02. The fourth quarter begins with Team A leading by 40 points. Team B has not used any of its timeouts. Team A commits multiple turnovers to start the fourth quarter, while Team B goes on a three-point shooting tear. And with prudent use of its timeouts, Team B cuts Team A's lead to 10 points with 3 minutes remaining in the game. Does the game clock continue to run in accordance with the 40-point mercy rule? Right? In California, we have a mercy rule, 40-point at the start of the final period, fourth period. The clock runs except for timeouts, right? Great rule to have, etc. We have a lot of words here in the scenario. We have a lot of words in the question. A, no. Since the game has become competitive, the mercy rule is set aside. That is not true, right? The clock will continue to run. B, yes, it is. If the game goes to overtime, normal timing rules will apply. C, yes, once the 40-point margin is reached, the game clock runs for the duration of the game, regardless of the score. Or D, by mutual agreement of both head coaches and the referees, the rule may be set aside, right? So we have a mercy. So first of all, this scenario will never, ever happen. It's the possibility exists, but a team that is trailing by 40 points to start the fourth period, we use 8-minute periods per NFHS rules here in California. We have a running clock. That team will not score. The team that is being beaten will not score 40 points. Right, in this situation, but we're talking about a hypothetical situation, which basically brings about a misunderstanding about the rule for me. And one of the ways we like to describe the rules is it's like a big round of cheese, right? Look at that. It's perfect. It's smooth. All the surfaces are covered, except we have complete rules knowledge, except we cut that round of cheese open, and inside we open it up. Oh, there's bubbles. There's little areas where we may have a misunderstanding. Either we've learned a rule, the rule has changed over the course of time. In the recesses of our brain, we think in that little bubble that the previous rule still exists, or we just never had an understanding of the rule, right? And those can occur, and this occurred for me in this instance. I know in the mercy rule, the clock is going to run, but in this wildly hypothetical situation, right? Well, obviously, if by some miracle this team is able to get and ties the score and we're going to overtime, we would certainly, at that point, rather than have a running clock for the overtime, we would certainly reset, go to stop clock. Yes? No. No, we would not. That we would certainly reset, but the answer to the question is C. Yes, once the 40-point margin is reached, the game clock runs for the duration of the game, regardless of the score. So in our hypothetical situation, it would never happen. If we got to overtime, we would have a running clock overtime period, believe it or not. But that's what the rule says, right? The rule says the game clock runs for the duration of the game. There's no exception, even though I would have a logical case to make that exception. That exception does not exist per rule. So we have a situation where, just like that big round of cheese, I've got a lack of knowledge, a small little lack of knowledge somewhere, right? And this hypothetical situation brings that to bear that we've made a mistake. Mercy rules are going to vary state to state, association level, what have you. Mercy rules are a great thing. Here in California, when you have that blowout, it's 50-8 going into the fourth period. Nobody's excited about, stop clock fourth period in that situation. The coaches for both teams want this game over for the most part. And so I really appreciate the fact that here in California we have that. By mutual agreement of the coaches, the mercy rule may be put in effect prior to the start of the fourth period. Do we have a rule that states that, Mike, or just sometimes I've certainly done that in games. I did that at St. Joe's, my girls' game. St. Joe's was crushing the other team. We had mutual agreement. The teams needed to go. Timing was important to them. And so we fixed that. But is that in the rule itself? Let me know in the chat, Mike, if that's the case. I suppose I could look it up. Come on. Who does that? All right. Mike's going to see if he can find that. Okay. Right. So stated at meetings, but is it in the rule, right? So that's one of the things we have to be aware of. Okay. All right. Well, we've hit the 1 minute, we've hit the 1 hour mark here today for the live stream, and that is going to wrap it up. I just wanted to create this episode I've got a playlist for California officials. I don't want, I've identified the questions that I got wrong in the show notes for those, but I wanted to just give California officials a follow-up video identifying the plays that we got wrong. And we see why we got wrong in many instances, but in a couple of instances, it was specifically related to not understanding the rule completely. And that's fantastic, right? If we can take a test, which is there to test our credibility as officials, do we know the rules? That's fantastic. But if the exercise produces a situation where we say, I did not know that. I didn't know that. I've learned something. That's fantastic as well. And that's what we like to do here with Basketball Rules Expert, is explore the rules, talk about the rules, stretch the rules, open them up, look at them this way, look at them this way, see all of the nuances of the rules so that we can have a better understanding. Why? So we can go out on the court and officiate the game in accordance with the rules and be 100% correct in our rulings on the court. Test taking is fine. I got a 94.2 on this test. That's fantastic. But what we do on the court when the game is on the line, that's what rules knowledge is really all about.